forgot about that bio. I love pho, so if you have pho recommendations in San Francisco, let me know. So this picture is funny, right? Like you guys, does this look familiar? I was in the room, just like you, 3 years ago. And I was sitting way back there. I had been a product marketer once for 3 years. I was a solo PMM. I ended up hiring 2 other PMMs under me. And I came here and I was just dying for stories, for case studies, for data points. PMA was pretty new back then. And there weren't all those podcasts that there are now on PMM. And I personally didn't know that many product marketers. So I was very eager to learn. Now, fast forward 3 years, here I am today. I get the honor of sharing with you one data point, one product marketer story. I started as the solo PMM at Quantometric 3 years ago, and now I have a team of 8. And just for context, we are a B2B enterprise scale-up. We provide digital insights to business and technology teams. So I heard somewhere, I can't remember where, but sometimes some of your best coaches can be the people who are just a few years ahead of you. And I think that's because we have very fresh wounds. We can talk about our failures. We can talk about how we learned those things. And so this is my journey that I'm going to be sharing with you. It's kind of told like a case study, really. And I'm going to tell it to you in 4 phases. The 4 phases I've gone through in my 2 times as a solo PMM to leading a team. Of the things that I wished I had learned just a little teeny bit earlier, it would have made my life a lot easier. And so I hope that something I share with you today can help you in your journey, maybe reduce just a little bit of the stress along the way, help you figure out a few things a little sooner than I did. So let's start. Phase 1, solo PMM. Now, actually, I just want to ask you guys, how many people in this room are a solo PMM right now? Okay, you are my target audience. Perfect. So this means you are the one person, or maybe you want to be the one person. And by the way, quick tip, if you are the one PMM, there's a real opportunity for growth, right? Because you are the one defining product marketing at your organization. And I happen to become the head of product marketing at the last 2 organizations I've been at because I was the first one. So one of the things that I did do right my first time as a product marketer was I joined an all hands and I shared what is product marketing. And it's especially relevant when you're in a smaller organization where not everyone has had that exposure to product marketing. So this is the exact slide I used at that all hands. It's kind of embarrassing, but I'm just opening up, being super vulnerable with you guys. I think the 4 buckets are actually okay, but I probably would communicate the why it matters a little bit differently now, you know? Back in those days, my priorities were very simple. Create a one-pager. That was an order from the CEO. Work on a sales deck, said my CMO. Salespeople needed vertical and persona messaging. Okay, cool, I can do that, right? I think my view of product marketing was more naive back then. I definitely felt like I could do all these things, but it quickly spiraled out of control. So this next slide is kind of crazy. I kid you not, but this is a slide format I used with my CMO to help me prioritize every 2 weeks. So I was kind of borrowing that sprint mode. There was just so much to do. Sprint, 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 sprint. And I used this slide to just kind of show her the chaos, you know? And then help me prioritize this. By that time, we had one product marketer, and I have to admit this is not the best modeling for my direct report. But either she humored me, my CMO, or she maybe also agreed with the chaos. So, first lesson, phase 1 of product marketing being a solo PMM, don't let a little of everything become a lack of strategy. And I think when you're the solo PMM, you get pulled into everything. SEO, campaigns, content, just everything, right? And like, if you are a product marketer, a high-performing product marketer, you want to see everything through. And it's going to take you away from your core role as a product marketer, which is the focus on the messaging, your customers, your audience. So stay aligned with your leadership. Understand what the priorities are, focus on what the objectives are, and get help in prioritizing. Number 2, I know you're here because you're investing in your learning, and I guess I just can't take this for granted, is that you really need to invest in those core PMM skills, the things that you've heard about all day today, the messaging, segmentation, learning how to do customer research, competitive research, understanding the buyer's journey. I know you're all here, you all know this. I think I took that for granted in the beginning and not investing in myself and the core PMM skills. Number 3, I did kind of hit on this. So if you're the solo PMM and your organization is growing, you have a really great opportunity to grow with it. And what I think I would have done differently is just thought a little bit earlier, a little sooner, about what my program could have looked like a year or 2 forward. So start the research. Start those conversations with the right people, which I'll get into next. Phase 2, building the team. So back to 3 years ago, here I am in this room. That was the question I set out to answer. What does a product marketing team look like? What are all the possibilities? And, if you were here 3 years ago, you would have heard Diana at Segment speak about this exact topic. And I was thinking, wow, if we got our next round of funding, I could do something similar. That would be so cool. I heard from Francis Larkin. He had led product marketing at Envision. He had also been at Facebook. So because I'm a PMA member, I would go back on the PMA site. I would re-watch, re-reference, reread these presentations. They were my reference materials. I also spoke to peers. I posted on the PMA Slack channel. I spoke to our VC advisors. I have a favorite Gartner analyst I go to. So I was just doing the research. If I had started just a little bit earlier, I think it would have suited me very well. But I will say, when I saw it, I knew it. So this is a graphic actually from PMA State of Product Marketing Leadership last year. And here's John describing the 3 functions that roll up into product marketing. And when I saw this, portfolio, industry, buyer and competitive intelligence, it just clicked for me. I just knew that this was it for our business. So I drew up something very similar for our CMO. I showed it to her, and it just clicked for her too. And I have to say, I don't know if she remembers this, but when I had that moment with her, I felt like I got it, I felt like she got it, I got it, and it was a great milestone for me. This is what our product marketing team looks like today. So first, just to clarify, these are not all people. These are functions, so I have multiple functions assigned to a person. So I like to start with market intelligence on the right. Left. So that's voice of customer, that's competitive intelligence, that's analyst relations, feeding all those insights back into the strategy. And then in the middle, of course, is your classic platform or portfolio marketing. And this is the product marketing function, which is so adept at product messaging, platform launches. Also, we have pricing and packaging rolling up into this, customer activation and partnerships. And then on the very end here, we have what I bucketed as category and industry marketing. So category being continuous product design, which is our category. It's our movement that we're trying to build. So there's a lot of thought leadership and a lot of storytelling that goes with that. And then for the industry marketers, we have 4 industry marketers aligned to our top go-to-market verticals. And they support the messaging, the thought leadership, the solutions. Now, speaking of industry, I had hired experts from the top of their fields. They'd worked 10 to 20 years in Marriott, Fidelity, Amazon, but they had never worked first as a product marketer, and they had never worked or seen a B2B enterprise sales motion. And I had taken for granted how much development, how much learning that these folks needed. So It took us a few months, but what we ended up doing was partnering industry marketing with platform marketing. And when you bring those two together, you get such a powerhouse with complementary skill sets, and it also creates that cross-pollination of learning across the team, which I love. And then below that, we've also formalized a minor, kind of like a minor and major. And the minor is a persona focus and the related partnerships and integrations that align to those personas. All right, now, 3 lessons I learned in phase 2, building the team. First, obviously, there's really no one-size-fits-all approach, and that's my best advice I can give you is that go talk to your peers, go talk to your leadership, understand what your commercial model is, where the business is going, what products you have, are you verticalizing, what segments you have. You will figure this out if you gather all the right inputs. Secondly, and I think Indy mentioned it this morning, think about who's on your bench now. What strengths do you have on your bench now? As an example, I had a product marketer who was just really passionate about pricing and packaging. So it made sense. He was really good at it. We kept it with him. We badly needed people who knew how to launch products, actually. As I moved into a leadership position, I didn't have time to manage those tier 1 launches. So we brought on someone with a really strong product marketing foundation who had worked with our segment of enterprise customers and who really knew how to work cross-functionally with product, with biz ops, with sales. Third, a related point, I love having the diversity of skills on our team. So we have the industry marketers who have just such a depth of domain knowledge and an empathy for customers that it's just really hard to replicate otherwise. We have a former sales enablement manager who understands the sales process and has the empathy with the sellers. We have a former SE who really understands our technical differentiators, who knows the product inside and out. And that strong marketer, that strong product marketer I was talking about, he really rounds out that team and provides another coach for your core product marketing skills. Next phase, growth and scale. This is the fun phase. So first point I want to make about this phase, I learned from a really great article from First Round Review, and it's called Give Away Your Legos. And the point of this is that when you're in a startup or a scale-up, there are so many Legos. Everyone has access to all these Legos. You're building all these really cool things, and you're doing all these different jobs. You're building something really important, but you can't do it all. So you bring new people in, and then all of a sudden you kind of feel nervous. You're like, can they do the job as good as I did it? Are they doing it better than I did it? What do I do now? So your instinct is to suddenly just grab all those Legos back. And as a new leader in a high-growth organization, you really have to navigate that and get comfortable with giving away your Legos every few months. And funny story, I was practicing this speech with my son last night, who's 6 years old. I kept talking about giving away your Legos, and he said, "Mom, don't give away my Legos." So giving away your Legos is also a natural part of becoming a manager or a leader. So let me walk you through this graphic. I actually got this graphic from our CFO. When you start out as a new professional, you're in this little triangle here. You're kind of represented by this triangle. You're doing stuff, right? Your manager is driving the agenda. You're doing the things your manager is asking you to do. You're evaluated on how well you do those things. If you do those things really well, you probably get promoted to manager. And now your doing is a little bit smaller part of the triangle. And all these other black triangles fill in. And these represent like other things that are kind of more gray, like coaching, motivating. You're responsible for people's careers now. You're responsible for the investment that the company put into all of these people that you're hiring. And then when you become a leader, you're represented by this much larger black triangle. And you're just not doing as much. The doing is now just that little pink triangle, and the rest of your time is taken up by leading. You have other stakeholders beyond your team, your cross-functional stakeholders. This is the only way you get to scale. When you're able to give away your Legos, when you're coaching and motivating your team to be the best, and when you're aligned with the objectives of the business, with leadership and cross-functional stakeholders. So one of the important lessons I learned last year during this period of growth is that sometimes you do have to intentionally slow down in order to speed up. So in the first phase of being a product marketer, you're just doing everything as fast as you can. And then you realize, okay, that's not going to scale. And that means you have to start being really thoughtful about the bets you're making, about the choices you're making, about the trade-offs you're making. I think of this as, how are you going to apply the limited resources and time you have to the overarching business strategy? We did this last year where we sat down as a product marketing leadership team, and we wrote this simple document. It was our plan for the next year. So we looked back, we thought, okay, what did we do this year? What did we do well? What did we learn? What are our goals for next year? What are the business goals for next year? How does product marketing align to those things? What activities do we want to execute to support those things? What risks are there to the plan? And what resources are we going to need from a budget and headcount perspective? We wrote this all out. It was like a, 3 to 5 page document. It was really fun. Actually, it was one of the funnest things we did last year. And you're probably wondering, how closely did we stick to the plan? Well, I would be surprised if we stuck to it 100%, right? A lot of things changed, but it was a guiding light for the year. And it informed this second part here, our QBRs. So every quarter, we go back and we look at our annual plan to define the next quarter. We're like, okay, what's changed? How did we do this last quarter? And this is something we just borrowed from our sales organization, our CS organization. We're running this QBR just within our product marketing team. The really cool thing is our CMO joins. So she gets real good insight into what our team is delivering every quarter, and she gets to have her input onto what she wants us to prioritize next quarter. And in these PMM QBRs, we talk about, hey, what's working? What are the top wins from the past quarter? What did we miss on? Are these still the right key results to measure? So as an example, first quarter this year, we did not hit one of our key results by a lot. We were trying to get customers to certify for certification, didn't get that. So what happened? Is it still something we want to do? We decided it is something we wanted to do. So we talked about all the different activations we hadn't tried yet. We kept it as a KR. We doubled down on it at the next quarter. Third, the next way we're staying aligned is we now have a biannual messaging kickoff. So we do this in May, and we do this in October. And it keeps us accountable to looking back at our persona messaging, our industry messaging, our horizontal messaging, and making sure if anything needs to be refreshed, if there are any new market trends or customer trends we want to take in, that we do that, and we're updating our messaging guides, we're updating our campaign messages, our content strategy, some of our sales enablement content. 3 lessons learned during this growth and scale phase. 1, you really have to take the time to coach your team on the product marketing craft. I really think of it as a craft. And one of the things an old manager of mine told me a long time ago, his mantra on coaching was, the first time I do, you watch. The second time, we do it together. The third time you do, I watch. And I think this can really apply in product marketing. For example, if you have a product marketer who's never done a case study before, how about the first time I'll write the questions together. I'll do the interview with the account teams. Then I'll do the interview with the customer. You watch. Second time, let's partner together. Third time, you're doing it. I'm supporting you. A couple other things we've done recently is do a 5-week book club on the book Loved, which is a product marketing primer. We do Friday Gong Insights. So every Friday, share one Gong Insight on Slack with the team. I heard recently that Atlassian, I know there's some Atlassian folks in here, has a dedicated product marketing leader focused on developing PMM craft. That's amazing. Like, I have this vision of developing a curriculum for our product marketers as well, really tailored to the product marketing needs at Quantum Metric. Secondly, the more your team grows, the more your organization grows. Of course, communication is so important. And I think of communication as context. And I think that a lot of times we underestimate that people around us have the context to make the decisions that we could make. And so, as an example, the way I do this is I have in my weekly agenda template with my team a State of the Union from me. And I'm remembering to cascade down anything I heard from the marketing leadership team, from our CMO, so that my team has the same context as much as possible as I do. Third, I did say give away your Legos, and it's really hard. I've given away a lot of Legos, and I feel like maybe sometimes I gave away too many Legos, or sometimes I gave them away without properly coaching my team, and then I felt this instinct to take it back. And I haven't really figured out this balance yet. I just want to acknowledge that it's a really hard balance. Finally, phase 4, leadership. I'm not going to spend a lot of time in this phase because I am not going to reinvent the wheel on leadership. There are a bazillion resources out there for you. These are just a few books I've read in the last couple years that I really enjoyed. And what I want to say here is that you have to invest in yourself as a leader to build your team before you can actually lead and build your team well. And I really did discover in the last couple years that there's so much I did not know about being a leader, a coach, a teammate, a strategist. There is one leadership framework I want to share with you because I think this one is so relevant to product marketing. And there's a lot of leadership frameworks out there. This is the 5 Ways to Lead by the Coactive Leadership Institute. In the middle, it's that leader within. So really finding that self-acceptance and that self-authority within. On top is the leader in front, and that's the leader who you normally think of, who's on stage, who's at the meetings, who's facilitating new initiatives. But there's also the leader beside, and that's the leader who are your cross-functional stakeholders. Maybe a product marketer on your team who you really see as your peer, especially in certain initiatives where they're really leading. There's a leader who's also behind, and this is kind of like the servant leadership model, really growing and putting your teammates in front. And then I love this leader in the field because I think of it as listening and sensing and identifying when you should step in. So you're listening to the market, you're listening to customers, you're listening to your field teams, and you're listening for those right opportunities for you to take leadership. 3 lessons learned in this leadership phase. I already kind of hit on this, but you really can accelerate your leadership skills. PMA has been a great resource for me. I've also joined Pavilion, which is more broadly for go-to-market teams, so I'm also trying to get outside of product marketing. This is a wonderful tribe, and I want to understand how my other stakeholders work. How do revenue teams work? How do product teams work? So I've joined these other organizations to learn how they work and build the empathy with them. Number 2, build a bench of coaches. And you can find them in the most unlikely places. But some of the obvious ones are PMA. I have a couple PMMs I Slack just anytime about anything. It's amazing. I've never met them, but I love it. I host a bi-monthly analyst relations roundtable just with a couple other PMMs that were introduced to me who happen to also lead analyst relations. I just scheduled it. It's bi-monthly. If they come, great. And they've come every single time. I have a favorite Gartner analyst. If you have a license with Gartner or Forrester, I have a Gartner analyst who is just so good at helping me understand go-to-market. And I'm really fortunate that our company happens to offer free and unlimited personal coaching, which I use as a stress reliever, just to get a little bit of counsel on how I'm leading my team, where I'm challenged. So I go to all these resources, and I encourage you to build your bench as well. And lastly, as product marketers, I know you are naturally curious. And in leadership, I think staying curious is just as important. And in fact, I think asking questions is the #1 underrated leadership skill. When we ask questions, we slow down, we clarify, we get to the root issue, and it helps us be a better coach, a better problem solver, a better decision maker. So wrapping up, I'm going to end with a framework because I'm going to synthesize everything I just said into a framework because I am a product marketer. So as you go through these 4 phases of solo PMM to scale, phase 1, this is where your focus is mostly on the doing. You're doing everything. You're learning the core PMM skills. Your time horizons are probably more around weeks to months. As you grow into phase 4 of leading your team, where you're mostly focused on is now leading. Where you're learning is learning about leading, but I also add learning about how to teach the core PMM skills. And now you're thinking in time horizons of quarters to half years to years. So this has been my 4-phase solo PMM to scale journey. One more data point for you, one more case study, one more story. You're in the audience today. That's you, that's you. Taking it in, learning, and I hope that I've been able to give you a jump start on some parts of your journey. I hope next year you'll be on this stage. If you have a question about anything I've shared, I don't know if there's time for Q&A, but I'm happy to stay around and also find me on LinkedIn. Thank you.
Test, test. We have some time for Q&A for sure. That was a great presentation. Thanks so much for that. Great topic. So Slido's just about to pop up. Great. So give you a chance to have some water. You good? How did you balance workload with continued learning as a solo PMM?
I wish I had a silver bullet answer for you, but no, it's really, really, really freaking hard. And that's why I actually put on my learning, like you have to focus on core PMM skills. It's so hard to do that when you're doing everything. I think I probably did try to do a little too much of everything. I did a little campaign stuff. I did a little SEO stuff. I did a ton of content writing. And now that our team has grown, I don't have to do those things anymore, and I get to really focus. It's a balance. I don't know what to tell you. It's really hard. But I would say if you're a big podcast person, I would wash dishes because I don't have a dishwasher, and I'm listening to podcasts or I'm on my commute. I've learned so much from all these new product marketing podcasts that have come out. So do it in your free time.
I did the same thing too. Yeah, but like mowing the lawn, great time to listen to podcasts, doing housework, chores, folding laundry. It's a big one. I can only hire one PMM. Should I go deep with industry knowledge or deep with product marketing background?
It depends. I mean, what's your background? So I think about like you're a bench, right? Well, who's on your bench? You. Maybe you have some gaps that you need to fill. So for example, with me when I was a solo PMM, I am a less technical product marketer. I really needed someone who was more technical. And I did hire someone who really understood our product. Industry, I would say, it depends on your go-to-market strategy. So it made sense for us because we actually have verticalized as a sales organization and a business. So we go after, retail, FSI, we verticalize that way. So we need a product marketer to support that selling motion. I hope I answered that enough.
Yeah, I think so. Are there any product marketing podcasts / books you'd highly recommend? And P.S. Kevin's Noodle House is the best fun.
I used to live in Sunset, so Kevin's is really good. So The Marketect, I've been listening to that the last few weeks. There's only about 12 episodes or so. That's The Marketect. ShareBird produces a ton of them. I believe PMA produces a few. So those are the 3 podcasts that I know of. ShareBird alone has at least 5 in their series. The books, I said Loved is a great primer. And then I think once you have those core PMM skills, so the one thing I did was I went really deep on product marketing. And then you got to go broad again as you go up into leadership, right? So now I'm reading strategy books. I'm reading go-to-market books. I'm reading marketing books. I'm reading about demand. And so you go really deep on product marketing, and then you need to go back broad.
That's great. Let's see. What's your advice for a growth marketer who wants to transition into product marketing?
Oh, that's a good question. I think a growth marketer has a great skill set for product marketing. So I would assume a growth marketer is very analytical, is looking at a lot of data, And these are great skill set for a product marketer. You could probably do really well in a PLG motion, right? So PLG motion is all about growth marketing. So I'm an enterprise. We don't look at that kind of data that deeply all the time because we have so few deals, and so our velocity is like way long. So we're looking at win-loss data. But I think a growth marketer, because they're so quantitative, you'd be really great in a PLG motion.
Yeah. What core product marketing skills do you recommend to start learning first?
Whoa, that's a really good question. I don't know. That's a really good question. I get, for me, at the end of the day, product marketing is also what am I trying to say? Product marketing is about understanding your customer and being able to message value to them. So I think most people instinctually can learn how to understand the customer. It's research, you interview people, you talk to people, you read. I think that's kind of more instinctual, but I think there's a real art to messaging, and I think that's really hard. I think messaging is really, really hard. And I don't think every product marketer is good at messaging, and that's the core skill of a product marketer. And so I would say that's my take. Focus on messaging.
I agree. That's a good one. Last question, because I want to get you out of here. How did you convince people to secure headcount? Any tips?
That's a good question, and I take these things for granted. I've had a really great advocate in our CMO. So I would say if your CMO does not understand the value of product marketing, first of all, maybe you shouldn't be working there. You want to go somewhere where you are going to have an advocate for your function to grow your program. Same thing with your CEO, actually. So our CEO is very supportive of product marketing. One of the things that has been really interesting with this QBR model that we've introduced is that our CMO gets to see the value we create every quarter and gets to be part of the strategic decision making. So if it's just you, maybe a QBR is a little bit overkill, but how do you celebrate your wins? How do you spotlight your wins? How do you talk about them with your leadership and make sure people understand the business value you've created? So besides the QBR, after we do the QBR, I actually roll up those insights, just like a few top-level things, to our executive leadership team and our sales leadership team. So I meet with the RVPs on our team and say, hey, here's what product marketing has delivered. Did you know about it? Here's why it matters to your teams. Let's make sure you're activating it with your teams, and here's how you do that. So if you're constantly bringing that value back to your organization, that's how you make the case.
That's awesome. All right, everyone, give it up for Christine.